All right, well, it looks like we have a quorum, so it is 8:31. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the State Board of Education, Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. And I will start. Maureen, could you do a roll call, please?
Yeah, sure thing. Amera Severtson.
Here.
Lyle Jepson.
Here.
Gabrielle Lucci. Mohammed Job.
Here.
Jenna O'Farrell.
Here.
Tom Levitt.
Here.
Kimberly Gleason.
Here.
Richard Warner.
Here.
Tammy Colby.
Good morning.
Secretary Boucher.
Present.
And Chair Samuelson.
Here, good morning. Thank you. So the next item are amendments to the agenda, and I've got two. One is, I believe that we will not be hearing from Katie Ballard this morning with the update from the Special Education Advisory Panel. So we are going to postpone that presentation to our July meeting. And then the second one is, if there's no objection, I'd like to propose moving item J, which is the EQS update. I'll move that up a little bit and we can handle it right after we approve the minutes at agenda item F, if that is acceptable to everybody. All right. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, I will move on to public to be heard. If there are any members of the public who wish to be heard, you need to hit *5 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Okay, I see someone ending in 3888 with your hand raised.
Yes, good morning. My name is Craig Hutvader.
Good morning. You may speak.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sure.
I just want to speak in support of the expeditionary school at Black River. I believe you have my written statement, so I don't know if I need to read that or if that just gets entered into the record automatically.
I have your email, if that's what you mean by your statement, but I'm not sure that that went to the full board. I don't know off the top of my head. I would say if you'd like to read it, just for the benefit of everyone who might be listening right now, you're certainly welcome to do so.
Sure.
I failed to remind everyone that there is a 2-minute limit on public comment per person, but you can definitely take this time to read into the record. And you can also submit it to be included with the minutes.
Oh, yes, please include it in the minutes. And I will be brief. So Black River Academy was originally chartered in 1835, and it operated as an independent school until 1938, and then it became a grade 7 through 12 public school in 1938. After a difficult Act 46 process, the communities of Ludlow and Mount Holly mutually agreed to close our 7 through 12 public school, and a group of local citizens, after talking with merger consultant Dan French, decided to open an independent school to have the option of a locally accessible school. It is not an independent version of the old Black River High School, but rather the school was reimagined for the 21st century and is based on the expeditionary school concept. After several years of hard work by the board, the expeditionary school at Black River opened in 2020 during the pandemic. And despite incredibly challenging circumstances, we have successfully operated ESBR for 3 years with no public funding. Every penny has been raised locally. I've known several students who attended or currently attend ESBR, and I've known them since they began preschool at Mount Holly School over 10 years ago. They are some of the most self-motivated, creative, and hardworking students that I have ever had the pleasure to work with. They are self-directed and fully committed to academic rigor and service to our community. ESBR also serves students who are not as successful in larger, more traditional schools, but have thrived at ESBR. We have experienced leadership ready to take the helm, as well as a track record of community support that is truly remarkable. Recently, the citizens of Ludlow voted to allocate $75,000 for ESBR. We have vibrant partnerships with a wide range of organizations, including the New Hampshire Academy of Science and the Fletcher Farm Craft School. Individuals like Broadway actress Susan Hefner have worked with our students to write and perform original works of art. The specifics are far too numerous to mention here, but if you would like to take a moment to look at our website, that would be much appreciated. Time is obviously of the essence because of the moratorium language in the legislation on the table. We have been going through this approval process for 2 years now, and we would very much like to have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Is it possible to get some idea of how the process might work before that moratorium gets put into place? Or if the moratorium is put into place, would there be any consideration for ESBR because we're so far into the approval process?
So as we said in our May meeting, we are aware that there are schools that are in the pipeline. There's nothing pending before the board right now. So we can't really speculate about a timeline because we don't have anything in front of us. But what I have said, and I think the board agrees with me on this point, is that if ESBR's application comes before the board, we will make every effort to warn a special meeting to consider the application before the July 1st anticipated moratorium.
And we have 4 members of the AOE who are visiting our site tomorrow. Do you have a sense of how long the process for them to bring it to the board will be?
I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who wish to be heard? Okay, well, looks like we still have 10 more minutes of public comment, but in the meantime, I'm going to go on to the next item, agenda item. I'm having trouble this morning, and I'll circle back periodically. So the next agenda item are board announcements. I've got a couple, but are there any other board announcements? Okay, the first announcement is that, and let me just interrupt myself. It looks like Gabrielle is having trouble getting into the meeting. Maureen or Suzanne, would you be able to reach out to Gabrielle?
Sure, thank you.
All right, thank you. So the first announcement is we typically hold our meetings the 3rd Wednesday of the month, but our August meeting is scheduled on what is a state holiday. So I think we need to reschedule that. I'd like to propose having our meeting on August 9th instead, if that works for board members. And I don't need a final answer now. I just wanted to flag that. But if you could get back and let me know if August 9th will work for you, that'd be great. It will be a virtual meeting. I think over the summer, that probably makes sense for a lot of people.
Just one thing I can tell you is that our I think that's when we have our subcommittee meeting scheduled. That's what it's on my calendar, but we can double check that.
Okay. And then I guess the question is, would the subcommittee be able to do 2 meetings, or is that kind of more than you can allocate in one day? Because I don't want to, burden you guys. And we can certainly pick a different day, but that, keeping it on a Wednesday, and that was sort of the suggested date.
And it might be that we could move our meeting to August 2nd. But yeah, I just
Okay.
want to let you know that.
Okay. So, we'll certainly have a final answer by our July meeting, but I did just want to throw that out there. It will not be held on August 16th. Could be held on August 9th, and if not, then we'll find another date and announce that. The second announcement is I've done some rearranging of our EQS committee. This was set up by then Chair Olson, and it was originally comprised of co-chairs Tammy Colby and Kim Gleason, as well as Patrick Brown and Tom Lovett. Patrick, as we all know, has stepped off the board. And given the fact, it seems like a good inflection point because we've just, just begun the formal APA rulemaking process. And we are also planning to reopen 2200. So as I looked at who's on which committees, I think, well, what I've discussed with board members is that Tom Lovett is going to step off of the EQS committee, and Mohammed Job and Rich Warner will be stepping onto the committee, and we will keep Kim and Tammy as our co-chairs. So just wanted to let members of the public know that, and just take this moment to recognize Tom for his hard work and dedication and perspective that he's lent to the EQS committee. So thank you, Tom.
Welcome.
Thanks, Jen. And then Jennifer, I just might also add that we had discussed when our new students are appointed to the board, there would be capacity if they had capacity in their schedules to add a student board member as well, if I'm remembering our conversation,
Yes.
Just to encourage student voice in the process as well.
Right. And I think you could accept one student without
That's right.
sort of, yeah. So we'll have that conversation. We don't have any new student members yet, but when we get there, that will be a great conversation to have with them. And then the third announcement that I wanted to make is that I just heard and wanted to share that Donna Russo Savage will be retiring at the end of the month. So what I'd like to do is properly recognize her at her July meeting. But I wanted to let board members know that, and then just, really recognize the fact that she's been so invaluable to the board over the years, and she will definitely be missed. So, Dawn, if you're out there, thank you very much. And, we will have an official moment in July. So with that, any other announcements? Okay. And then I'll circle back if there's any members of the public who wish to be heard. Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to our student report. And I know Amera has some good news to share with us.
Hi, everyone. I am coming live to you from Georgia. I came down here a couple days ago for a Skills USA competition. Along with me being a Skills USA officer, I'm also a voting delegate for the organization, which means we vote for the new national officers. And I graduated cosmetology school. I finally have my cosmetology license after 2 long years of being at my school, but I absolutely loved it, every second of it, and I would do it all over again. Other than that, I don't have very much. I don't know how long I'll be able to be on this meeting because I do have other meetings in my competition to attend to today. So I will let you guys know, but I want to say thank you for letting me be on the board this year and all the opportunities you guys have given me. And it was quite amazing to get to meet all of you and get to know all of you. Thank you very much.
Amera, did you have to take a exam for your license?
I did. I had to take both a written and a practical exam. So they were both spread out between 2 days. So it was a 2-day long test that I had to take, but it was pretty worth it, I would say.
Well, congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you very much.
Knowing what I know about tech ed, that was a difficult 2 days. Congratulations.
Very much so. Thank you.
And it looks like Kim just dropped a comment. Let me pull it up. Sorry, bear with me.
It was with respect to Donna and her service, but Amera, congratulations. It sounds like a really exciting time in your life, and we're grateful for your perspective and the insight you were able to share with us. Thanks so much.
And did Gabrielle, was she able to join?
Yeah. Which one?
Working on.
Let me see. Let me see. Where's it?
So whoever's speaking, we can hear you.
I just muted that person, so
Thank you.
we'll give her a second. I just told her she should dial in. She's using a different computer and thinks that's where the issue is. So. Okay. Looks like she's on now. I don't know if her mic is working. It should be.
Does she need to hit *5 to unmute?
Nope, she should be. Yes, she would need to hit *6 to unmute.
*6, thank you.
Sorry, you're testing me. There you are, Gabrielle.
So Gabrielle, I don't know if you're speaking, but we can't hear anything.
Looks like she left.
So. Well, and I'm wondering, I mean, I don't want to leave this item open, but we could, I don't even know if Amera is still on the phone now. We could do Amera's resolution and then circle back to this agenda item if Gabrielle has anything to include with her report. Does that seem acceptable? All
Yeah,
right.
I don't think Amera's on the call anymore, but.
All right. Well, we will send a copy of, actually, we interrupt myself. I see that there's someone whose hand is raised.
I think that's the same one, isn't it?
The same.
Yeah.
Oh,
I I had my hand raised. This is Craig Hutbader again. I was
Okay.
just curious. I'm aware that other folks also submitted. They submitted emails to the chair, Ms. Samuelson. Do those not automatically become part of the record?
They are part of the public record because they are emails, and I've responded, as far as I know, I've responded to every email that I've received.
Mhm.
Again, reiterating, I appreciate the time
Yeah.
that people are taking to send the emails, but there's nothing pending before the board. There's nothing for the board to consider at this point, and then just reassuring people that if something were to come before the board, that we would make every effort to warn a special meeting to consider the application.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone that's been in contact with you definitely understands that. I think what I'm getting at is like when I looked at the May minutes of the meeting, people who had written statements, those were put onto the website, so you could see what they
Right.
had written. Whereas there were a couple folks who just made oral comments, so it just referred to them making comments, but you couldn't see the text of what they said. So
Correct.
I'm trying to clarify, do the written statements that people have submitted to you, are they going to show up like the written statements were on the minutes of last month's meeting?
So those were different because the written statements that came out of last month's meeting, those were people who appeared during public comment and read statements, and then they were then included with the minutes. I certainly don't have a problem with forwarding emails to be included with the minutes, but that wasn't requested. And it didn't come out during public comment. So there's a distinction in my mind between, the chair receiving an email and people appearing in public comment and reading a statement into the record.
Yeah, that could be an error on our part. We made the assumption that because the written correspondence went directly to you, that you would be reading them into the record for people who weren't able to attend the meeting virtually. But
Okay.
we can have all those people go back and ask specifically to have them entered into the record, if that would.
Sure, and I think maybe the proper procedure there is if they can email Maureen and Suzanne and request that, that would probably be the easiest way to accomplish that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Kim, is this about public comment
Yeah.
or, okay.
Well, it's just a question procedurally on that. If, I guess I'm just trying to understand, we receive a lot of correspondence and the minutes are capturing the conversation and the content of the actual meetings. So on any topic, we aren't automatically including written public comment in our minutes because they weren't part of the meeting, and
Right.
they are not even targeted to an agenda item because we don't have an agenda item on this topic. So I would find it odd that other correspondence received between meetings be attached to minutes where they've not been directly part of a meeting.
Right. And so I think, if the people, who've been sending these emails want that correspondence to be included, I think they can follow up with Maureen and Suzanne. But that, to your point, I mean, that's exactly right. It was an email. There's nothing pending before the board. It's not part of our agenda today. So, what I responded, which is part of the public record, was that just responding to the fact that there's nothing pending and we will do what we can. But, at this point, there's nothing for us to do.
Right. And it just would seem not appropriate that their email correspondence between meetings become part of the minutes of this meeting, in that they were not present in the meeting, nor are they directed at an agenda item for today's meeting.
Right. So I think conceptually, I hear what you're saying. I wouldn't want to deny them the opportunity to have this made part of the public record, and however that appropriate mechanism is fine.
And
So-
perhaps, Jen, it makes sense to have it, because we've done this with other things when we've done EQS or otherwise. When we received emails targeted to an agenda item, it then gets attached to that meeting. So when we have an agenda item, if we've received correspondence related to that agenda item, it might be packaged as public comment related to that agenda item more
Sure,
appropriately than being attached to a meeting that people didn't attend.
Yeah, and actually, I think that makes a lot of sense. So if we were to include that, in connection with a public or a special meeting, I think that would make a lot of sense, because then there'd be sort of this universe of information for the board to consider, which had crossed my mind and I'd forgotten about that. So thank you. Okay, I see a hand raised. Is that Mr. Vader?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it is Craig again. It's fairly common, at least at the local board level, when someone writes an email, and I understand we're remiss, Jennifer, that people didn't specifically in their written correspondence request the letter to be read into the record, and we can certainly make that adjustment. But sometimes people can't attend a meeting like this because of work or other conflicts, and we don't use that as a basis to exclude that kind of public comment, regardless of whether there's an agenda item related to the comment. We wouldn't use that to exclude public speech.
Right, and I don't think that's what we're saying. I think it's really just trying to find the right place to put these comments. And so I think, to Kim's point,
right, public comments. Yeah. Who was the person that was speaking to you?
Kim Gleason.
Okay, another board member.
Yeah. But I think the point is, if the board warns a special meeting, all of those emails that have been submitted would become relevant to that special meeting, and that would be, in my mind, kind of the appropriate place to have that universe of information.
If I may add something, though.
Yes, Tammy.
I appreciate sort of the conversation that we're having here. I think what's important here is that in this instance and in other instances, if people are providing emails that they wish to have as public comment, they should label them as public comment, right? To Kim's point, there's a lot of correspondence that goes back and forth. We receive a lot of emails from folks, which is great. We want to be accessible to the public. But there's a difference, I think, between just routine email correspondence and something that should be read into the public record. And so if individuals are submitting a statement in lieu of being able to attend the meeting, and I agree with you, not everybody can always attend meetings, then there needs to be a clear statement or label on that email that this is actually being submitted as a public comment on a particular item or issue, as opposed to us having to go through oodles of emails and trying to figure out, well, which are, I don't know that makes a lot of sense either. And I'm not sure that everybody always intends the emails that they send to be registered as public comments either. And so, I think as a matter of practice, it would be helpful to just say, if someone wants to have it as a matter of the record and public comment, they need to say so. And when we get emails, we should just ask somebody, is this intended for public comment? If it is, then we can put it in the public comment bin and it can be labeled and, collated as such. But I think just trying to go through emails and figure out what's public comment and what is not is a lot of work to figure out on the part of the board. And I worry about just putting that burden on Maureen and Suzanne. So, in this particular instance, if individuals have submitted emails to a board member or multiple board members that they wish to have as registered as public comment, those emails need to come back with a header or a statement saying this is intended to be public comment.
And it may also, I also want to make sure Jennifer sees Richard, but I think it is particularly relevant when there's an agenda item to be considered. I'm not positive that I see the particular value in it at this moment, but I appreciate Tammy's clear delineation because we receive much correspondence on many topics.
All right, so I'm going to close down public comment, but I see Rich's hand is raised. And so I want to recognize him, and I'm not sure if there was someone else as well, but we're sort of approaching time on the public comment agenda item. Rich?
Yeah, I was kind of going to say what Tammy Colby said, that, you know, maybe what we should do is tell people on the local level, we always have a spot that says correspondence, and it allows anything that should be going to the board. And maybe we just need to explain to people and maybe add a thing that has correspondence, and we just recognize people submitted letters, and they and that they can be added to the minutes, to the record. And I don't think you have to put them all in the minutes. So I think I'm in agreement with everybody, because it is hard. Some people can't always make a daytime meeting because they have to work, but they had a comment that they wanted to make and would have made it if they could be there.
Sure. So I think, you know, if people want something to be included, they need to indicate that. But I don't think, you know, given the volume of emails that we receive, that every email needs to go into correspondence. That would make a very, very large agenda packet with a lot of things that are not relevant to that month's agenda. So I think, you know, we need to put some guardrails on it, and this strikes me as a good balance. And certainly, you know, back to Kim's earlier point, if we have a special meeting, all of the emails become relevant to that special meeting. They weren't really relevant to today's meeting because it's not on the agenda. But all of those emails are captured. They've been responded to. They are part of the public record. And, you know, at that point, you know, we could include them in the agenda packet for a special meeting. So with that, we are going to close public comment. Was Gabrielle ever able to join?
I'm not sure. There's a new caller that came in. I'm not sure if that's Gabrielle or not, but everything's enabled. The mics are enabled.
Gabrielle, if you're there, *6 to unmute, and we'll give you just a couple of seconds to see if you can come on.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yay.
Oh, great. Sorry, I had to dial in. I don't know what's going on with my computer.
Well, and thank you so much for, you know, repeatedly trying to get into the meeting, because we are aware that this is also your last meeting. So we definitely wanted to, you know, hear from you and recognize you, and thank you. But if you have a student report, please feel free.
I mean, it's the end of the year, and for most students, I know in my community, it's the end of the school year, and that's a huge relief and a huge weight off of many students' shoulders. And it's also a time that's a little bit nerve-wracking for some of us, since my fellow classmates in my grade and myself, we've graduated and we'll be going off to do all sorts of new things, which is exciting and scary. But I think it'll be more exciting than daunting, just because we have access to these new experiences. And I hope that for all the students who have not graduated yet, that this summer break is nice and relaxing, and a good time for them to reflect on the year they've had in school and get ready for the next year and be as successful as they can. I don't have anything else to report, so thank you.
Thank you. Do you have plans for the summer that you want to share?
Sure. I'm just visiting a lot of family since I'm going to college in Florida. I'll be far away, so I do have to say goodbye to a lot of my family members. And then at the end of the summer, I will be going down to Florida, not only to get ready for college, but also just for a fun Disney trip. So that should be pretty fun.
That sounds perfect. Well, we have certainly appreciated having you with us for the last 2 years. It's been great to get to know you. And, I personally really admire your thoughtfulness and sort of even tempered approach to things. And I think, your student reports have been very well organized and sort of recognizing not only your own experiences, but other people in your school. And it's been really, really helpful for the board to hear that. So I just wanted to thank you again for your time that you've been with the board.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a wonderful experience.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you again. This takes us to agenda item E, which is the resolution for Amera, who I understand is no longer with us, but we will read this and then she will get a copy of this in the mail. So this is the Vermont State Board of Education resolution of appreciation for Amera Severtson. Whereas Amera Severtson has served on the State Board of Education from August 2022 through June 2023, and whereas Amera enlightened the board about her experiences as a student at Central Vermont Career Center, CVCC, and shared her enthusiasm for her program, allowing the board to better understand the academic and career paths of students enrolled in career technical centers. And whereas Amera has served on the student leadership team during her 2 years at CVCC and helped to implement initiatives such as a program swap day and opportunities for students to check in and provide feedback in order to support the growth and success of the center. And whereas Amera is currently serving as the Secretary of Skills USA, an organization for career and technical education students to demonstrate their leadership and expertise in their trade or technical program. And whereas Amera won gold in the Skills USA Job Skills Demonstration competition during both of her years at CVCC, and is currently representing Vermont for the second time at the national competition in Atlanta, Georgia. And whereas Amera helped to lead the board's tour of CVCC as part of its monthly meeting on April 19th, 2023, and gave the board a taste of the many impressive programs that are offered. And whereas Amera was a vital member of the board and provided not just her student voice, but a voice for all Vermont students. Although her tenure on the board was short, Amera's term was full of insight and wisdom, and the board appreciates her perspective. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the State Board of Education bestows its gratitude and commendations to Amera. We thank her for her service. We hope that she will remain connected with our work, and we wish her continued success in her future endeavors as a cosmetologist and cosmetology instructor in Atlanta, Georgia. And this is dated this 21st day of June, 2023, and signed by me as the chair. So we will send that to Amera, and then she also, thanks to the many generous contributions from board members, there is a gift certificate to Salon Centric, which her instructors at CVCC thought would be really helpful for her to buy things that she would need to get started on her career. So she has a gift certificate waiting for her that she can use when she gets back. So, thank you. All right, so that brings us to agenda item F, which is the approval of our May 17th, 2023 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Tom Lovett. Is there a second? Seconded by Kim Gleason. Is there any discussion? Okay.
Just a many thanks to Maureen for capturing a complicated conversation around the EQS so well. Thank you again.
Right. There are no further comments. All those in favor of approving the minutes of our May 17th, 2023 meeting, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please raise your hand and signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? All right, the motion is carried. Thank you. And now we are going to take up agenda item J, the EQS update. So Tammy and Kim, I will turn it to you.
I can start, Tammy.
Good morning.
Or you go ahead. Do you want to go ahead?
Okay.
I was just going to say, we were able to attend the ICAR meeting on the 12th, and they had thoughtful questions, provided us some feedback. They passed it along for to allow for filing, and we are taking their feedback, not making changes to our EQS document, but rather the filing paperwork. There's some additional information they'd like us to sort of fill out around the economic impact that might be anticipated. And there is a summary statement that they offered positive feedback that helped us ensure that if that's I think the only thing people will see when the filing is up is the summary. So they wanted us to ensure it had full context. And we've done the majority of that. We are also working on planning for at least 2 or 3 public hearings, probably in the month of September, and then determining our final sort of closing of the public comment period so that the EQS committee can return to their work to take in those comments, provide responses and potential edits, and then return our final proposed EQS to the full state board for approval, and then move it on to the final steps of the process. So, but I felt as though our conversation with ICAR was well received, and their questions were thoughtful and provided good feedback for us to finish our filing. Anything else, Tammy?
No, I think
Or
that
Jen?
summarizes it. I think that summarized it well. It was a thoughtful conversation. Thankfully, I mean, there were a few very helpful comments with regard to adding a bit more detail in the application around the economic impact statements. And as Kim said, some clarifications on some of the introduction that's contained in the package. But we received no substantive feedback or critique on the rule itself. And in fact, it received some positive comments about sort of on how thorough and well done it was. So, I think the feedback we have is mostly on the form and how that moves out and how that enables the process to move forward, but not on the substance of the rule. The next thing the EQS subcommittee is going to need to turn to, and it's my understanding they should be here soon, are the standards that the Act 1 group will be passing along to us. Those are the curricular standards that will accompany the rule. And as a reminder, under 164.9, the state board adopts standards, but they don't go through a similar ICAR process. And so over the next few weeks, the EQS committee, in consultation with the chair, will be developing a thoughtful process for considering the standards that are going to come to us from, at least the recommendations for standards that are going to come to us from the Act 1 working group. And then we'll begin to work on those next. And again, the standards are the curricular standards and guidelines and frameworks that are, sort of also part of the Act 1 requirements. But they need to fit hand in glove with the EQS standard, the EQS rule. So that will be a big focus of our work next. And again, welcome to both Rich and Mohammed to the team that's going to be part of that. We look forward to your thoughtful input.
Thanks.
And Tammy and I did talk about the performance standards, which the Act 1 working group should be sending our way pretty soon. They had a June 30th deadline. They may be off that a little bit, but not a whole lot. And Tammy and I both felt it would be appropriate for the EQS committee to take the first pass at that, just because they are so intricately aligned or connected to the EQS rules. So I've asked the EQS committee to take the first bite at that and then process that. And then, I'm sure it will come before the full board at a later date. So thank you, guys.
The EQS subcommittee work continues. So stay tuned for more updates. Thank you all.
Exactly. Thanks.
Yeah. Any comments or questions? All right. Well, thank you both. This was really helpful, and we'll look forward to more updates. So that brings us to item G, which is the secretary's update. So I will now turn it over to Interim Secretary Boucher.
Thank you, Chair Samuelson. Good morning, all. It's nice to see you. I
morning.
have 4 pieces that I wanted to update you on. And then I believe the next item agenda is mine as well, but I'll pause certainly to see if there are any questions first on this current item. So first, a brief legislative activity update. You may already be aware of this, but yesterday was the veto session for the General Assembly. They did, in fact, override the governor's veto of the budget bill. So the budget bill, as provided before the veto, is now law. And also, they overrode the governor's veto of the child care bill. So again, the child care bill that the governor vetoed is now law. So I'm bringing those up because they're most relevant in terms of the legislative activity yesterday to the State Board of Education. Both of these have implications, as we already talked about. This does instantiate legally the moratorium on new school approvals. And then also in terms of the child care bill, the piece that's most relevant to our activity and the boards is what's required in the pre-K space. And so there will be another very large piece of committee work that's done with a number of stakeholders across both public and private pre-K entities that I get to co-chair with the AHS secretary or her designee. So I'd be happy to update once that work starts, and happy to answer any questions about that as I move forward. I think what I'll do, if it's okay, Chair Samuelson, is just wait and do these updates if that's okay, and then questions at the end, or I'm happy to answer them as we go.
If you want to keep going ahead, and then, we'll pause when you're done with your update, and then we'll do some questions then. I think that makes sense.
Perfect. So the second piece I wanted to provide an update to the board on is one of our important July 1st deadlines, and this has to do with the new 2200 series. We've talked about this quite a bit, and I just wanted to give an update on this. So this is, again, what the agency has been doing in terms of ensuring, helping our independent schools who plan to meet the new 2200 series obligations, what we've been doing to really assist and help them be ready by that July 1st deadline. Wanted to just update, as you know, we did send out a survey to independent schools to collect data, non-binding survey, really to get a sense of the supports we need to put in place. Final tally, 39 survey entries were received, 17 were from currently approved independent schools that plan to move forward and accept public funds. 2 approved schools did not plan to move forward. 20 were therapeutic schools, and 1 was a recognized school. And the recognized school, because it's not currently approved, will perhaps have it just will have to do more because it's currently a recognized school. So it has to meet, it's not already an approved independent school, which, as we've talked about, is probably easier for the currently approved independent schools to meet the new requirements. Kim, could I finish this section and then maybe take your question about that? So we did hold our virtual office hour as we had intended. It was on May 18th. We had a total of 38 participants and received positive feedback from the field. We're now in the process of finalizing an FAQ document in response to the specific office hour questions that arose, and we plan to be sending that to legal this week for a final review to make sure that everything we're saying is legal and appropriate. We don't want to misguide folks. We continue to work towards creating an updated electronic system, which is very exciting because this is going to allow independent schools to apply for and request to change their reimbursement rate and their independent school application in a much more streamlined fashion. This is overall for all of our independent school process, but it is certainly relevant for this particular topic and item. Along with that, we're updating the independent schools webpage to house new resources linked to the new 2200 series and Readiness and ongoing supports for those new requirements. And then we're also planning office hours in July to support schools to complete the new rate setting and independent school application. And so the dates for those will are determined, but that will happen next month. So I share this because we really heard folks in public comment and then from the board, and we really are trying to do our very best to provide as much support as we can to make sure that programs that are planning to qualify for public funds are going to be ready by that time. We're doing everything we can to assist them. Kim, I think you had a question.
Thank you. A few, but the one that prompted me in that moment was with the moratorium effective July 1, can a recognized school go from a recognized school to a school approved to receive public tuition?
That's a great point, and I hadn't thought that through, and the answer is no, unfortunately, because they are caught in this moratorium.
Okay.
So we'll have to let them know that
thank
ASAP.
you. And then I am appreciative of what sounds like good work in engaging with independent schools. Are the SUs or the LEAs looped in a way that they know those independent schools to whom they would continue to be eligible to send public tuition? And how are the families who are currently enrolled being informed one way or the other? Is there a drop dead date when these things need to have been determined?
So we have not done a lot of work in that space because we've been really trying to make sure that we're fulfilling our role of making sure that those who are planning to do this are ready. Those would typically, as I said last time, be local discussions. So it wouldn't necessarily be something that it would be typical of us to say by this date, you have to inform each other.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, is there a date by which the independent schools must inform, I don't know who, whether it's you or the LEA, whether or not they are going to be able to meet the requirements to continue to receive public tuition?
We haven't anticipated that. And Meg, I see that Meg Porcella is here. Porcella. I always try and really do the real Italian for Meg's name, and I apologize for that. But Meg is here, and I'm going to, if it's okay, Chair Samuelson, let her speak to this specific question because she has much better on-the-ground knowledge than I do.
Sure. So it is when what we've done up to this point has been asking independent schools what their plan is for moving forward. Our next step is then to have the application process be. We do not have a drop dead date for the application process, but that will be the time, I think, that's getting closer to what you're referring to, where it won't, the independent schools are moving from this notional idea to an actual practical, we are doing this. And that's when the connection back to the LEA, if necessary, will be practical, because then it'll be an actual decision that they're moving forward with. So we're in this sort of space where until we have the official application finalized, and we're working with our legal team, and then we'll roll that out to independent schools as well, so that everybody knows what to do, and then those things will be more official.
Do you have a date by which the application, if this is effective July 1, what is the date by which the application will be available?
as soon as possible.
Okay.
We were aiming for July 1 as well. I cannot promise, sadly.
And then do you think then from a practical standpoint for the LEAs, families, and independents, you will add to it a deadline by which it must be returned if they're going to be considered to be eligible?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well,
And
yeah.
do
go
we
ahead.
have a process on our end, Jennifer, that we have to do when they've applied and said they're going to be eligible because it's a new category of schools? Do we have a responsibility in it? Should we expect that we've got something we have to add to an agenda? Do you know? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Jennifer. I'm just
Yeah.
recognizing come July 1, there's a category approved to receive public tuition, and we have not, I don't know if we have a role in that.
Well, and I'm not sure either, because I mean, this information is going to be captured by the agency in the first instance. So I don't think there would be anything for the board to add to that process.
And so the agency is determining whether or not they meet the requirements to serve students with special needs. They've applied, you're evaluating whether or not they meet those requirements to be capable. And that then doesn't circle back and the board doesn't have any. I just am really trying to think about timeline and understanding who's responsible for what in this timeline. I'm a little bit less worried. I agree that's an LEA's responsibility for communicating, but right now I would find myself in an LEA's hat, difficult to know what to communicate because I don't know. And I just want to double check. I see a lot of hands and this will be my last one. I may have captured the in my notes not accurately, but it looked like what I saw was that you got 17 non-binding surveys back from currently approved schools. 2 of them didn't plan to move forward, so I'm counting 15 there and 20 or 20 something therapeutic schools. So do we think that that is all that we're in the 15 to 20 schools that will continue to be approved to receive public tuition?
If I may jump ahead, Chair Samuelson, I would say the point why I raised my hand was just that point, Kim, which is that many of these are already therapeutic schools. And so it's not like they haven't been offering special education. In fact, the bulk of our independent schools that are planning to meet the new 2200 series have already been providing them. So yes, there are some that are going to, this will be a brand new endeavor for them. So I just want to assure folks that the numbers, when you dig into the numbers, there's far less that are going to have to start from square one. The vast majority of independent schools who already provide special education and have been approved as such will, be basically just reifying we're doing what we've already been doing to actually provide approved special education services.
And that, because I was thinking too, therapeutic schools have a different set of, even parts of 2200 is different for therapeutic schools. So then again, just sort of back to my math, from those non-binding surveys received, 17 were not therapeutic independent schools, and only 2 of those said they don't plan to move forward. So we've got 14 or 15 currently approved independent schools who responded to the survey and planned to complete an application to be eligible to receive public tuition. And that seems far fewer than the number of independent schools we have in the state. And so I was just, and it may simply be that I don't actually know for sure, but it may simply be that we don't have as many that will continue to be in a place to be able to receive public tuition by virtue of their capacity to serve students with special
And
needs.
some of those already are approved. So even though they're not therapeutic schools, they're already approved just as a regular independent, approved independent school to serve students on IEPs. So that's an important clarification. it's not only therapeutic schools that are currently approved to provide special education services. And then, yeah, we wish that we had had more response to the survey. We tried. This is what we got.
Yeah, and I don't know that you can extrapolate from 17 schools to say, you know, only 15 independent schools are going to go ahead. I think we really just have to wait and see. And, you know, just speaking from my own knowledge, I know with my school district, our superintendent sent out letters to all independent schools that serve our students and asked them if they were planning to go forward, and said, if not, you know, please let me know, because we need to help you communicate to families and make a plan. And what she reported back to our school board is that, you know, all of her independent schools indicated that they were planning to go ahead. And of course, I don't know if those schools are the same schools that Heather's received responses from. So I think we just have to wait and see. The one point I was going to make, and then I'm going to turn it over, but with regard to this one recognized school, certainly true that they wouldn't be eligible to for initial approval, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't go through that process anyway, and there is value in going through that process. So I wouldn't want to dissuade them. And then they may have other reasons that have nothing to do with receiving public funds for wanting to, you know, receive that support from the agency. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you for that clarification, Chair Samuelson, because that is absolutely true. So what they will not be able to access at this point, I mean, hopefully the moratorium is not permanent, but at this point, they would not be able to be approved for public funds. They can certainly apply to be an approved school.
Other hands raised? I thought I saw some.
I'm going to go back to expeditionary school, so maybe Tom wants to stay on this topic.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, Heather, what the process looks like July 1. Already there's an attestation that is part of the approval process for schools, but that's what we see. And now there will be additional requirements for these schools based on Act 173. Is there a renewed attestation? How is the agency planning to determine which schools are ready to provide services to students needing special education? What's the? Because I think it goes a little bit to Kim's question. Is there a brand new application they're going to have to fill out? Is there an attestation that they have to fill out? When will those be sent out? When will they be received? And I'm kind of on the same question Kim was at. What's the mechanism in the timeline that you're planning to roll this out?
I'm going to turn this over to Meg because she's nodding, and I know that she is eager to respond to this one.
So, and please, Heather, check my memory on this. When the bulk of the 2200 series rules were approved by the state board in May of 2022, there was a series of attestations that all independent schools, regardless of where they were in the cycle, were required to agree to or acknowledge. And so we will be doing something exactly similar to that with the series of rules that go into effect on July 1st of 2023. So no matter where a school is in its cycle, we will catch all independent schools with this set of attestations that relate to the rules that are going live, on July 1. And then we'll also be catching any school that is doing something different. And again, the focus is obviously the schools that are going to be approved there will be that new application regardless of where those schools are in their cycle. So we'll catch all independent schools for these new rules that are coming on July 1st. For ones that were recently, I believe our intention is for ones that were recently through the application process, it'll be just redoing those attestations.
And just to tack on, if I may, the attestation clause that the agency developed last fall that we've been, seeing with applications for reapprovals and initial approvals, that attestation, like that set of, the 4 paragraphs, goes to a school's ability to be approved. This new layer of attestation will go to a school's, an approved school's ability to receive public funds. So this is going to be a subset. So you will still have schools as a condition of their approval who need to sign sort of the 4 paragraphs that we've seen. And then there will be this extra layer if they want to receive public funds.
Exactly. Thank you. You said it in a much clearer way. That's what I was trying to say. Yes.
So Lyle, you had mentioned that you had a question about expeditionary school. Are there any other questions about Act 173 or legislative update before we move on?
I just wanted to note to the board that I failed to mention that Meg is no longer the interim director of student support services in the agency. She is now the director. So just wanted to let you know that.
Congratulations.
We're very lucky. Yeah, we're lucky that she's in this role. My next item, Lyle, was to be something, a global topic on the moratorium and the impact on schools. But would you like me to start there if that was what your question was going to be?
Absolutely. Onward. Thank you.
Okay. So there are 3 schools that are affected by the moratorium. We have heard much more from ESBR than either of the other 2 schools. And we are working with due speed and diligence to bring a recommendation for the board on all 3 of these, but we have been really prioritizing ESBR given the conversations we heard, given some of the public comment, well, all the public comment that has been heard and digested in the last 2 board meetings. There is, as I think one of the public member folks that spoke, there is a site visit tomorrow for ESBR, and we hope that we'll be able to speedily incorporate the results of that site visit into the written application that we've seen, and then as quickly as possible get a recommendation to the board. We're really trying to work speedily and diligently, but also hold on the quality of the review. We don't want to either shortchange the school itself, and we don't also want to, we're not being overly critical by any stretch. We're just using our usual level of quality process, which I hope we would all agree with is important. So the other thing I would say is I know that it's often talked about that this has been a 2-year plus process. I guess you can say that from one perspective, but the reality is that there was an initial approval process that ended without approval in December 22. And we received the new application, right? So it starts all over. We received a new application in April of 2023, and we're now just in June. So I think we are trying our very best to get this done as speedily as possible. I want to actually thank the team at the AOE because they've been pretty heroic in responding and trying to get the pieces scheduled. And it's been on a timeline that's very truncated compared to the usual process. So And I don't say that in any kind of a defensive posture. I just wanted the board to hear more factually what's going on from our perspective. And we're really listening. We understand the impact of this. So I have just one last really quick one, if that's okay. And then Lyle, I know you had a question. So in terms of DQS, so we had an update from board members on EQS. So in terms of DQS, the agency's rule series, we are going before LCAR on June 29th. So further along in the process than the current EQS instantiation. And once we hopefully have a good, a positive meeting at LCAR on June 29th, the DQS will be enacted shortly after that. So that's the plan, fingers crossed. And that concludes my update.
Thank you. Lyle?
So again, back to the expeditionary school. So the report, they do the visit tomorrow and they need to put together a report, and then the committee will need to get together, and then the board needs to approve or disapprove. Can that happen into July, August, and will they still be in line, or does that need to happen within the next 9 days?
It has to happen within the next 9 days per law.
So will we get a report from the team within that time frame?
Yeah, I will consult with our general counsel on that. I want to make sure that that would be appropriate. I would hope that I'd hope that we're going to actually send the report to the school itself so that they would know. They've done a lot of work in this area, but I think what we're focused on right now is just really trying to get as much done as we can. Yeah, and I just saw from general counsel that we will do what we can to complete the report.
Well, and let me just add, I think by rule, the school has 30 days to review the report and file a response. It will be up to the school to decide to waive that 30-day period, but they are given that 30 days, which obviously would extend beyond July 1st. So that will be a decision for the school to have to make.
But just to be clear, what I'm hearing is they need to decide to move forward by July 1st. They need to decide that they agree with the report or don't in order for all of us to decide on approval or not. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. So, and Heather, you know this much better than I do, or Tom, but I think the process is school visit, which is happening tomorrow. Then the agency generates a report. Then the school is given 30 days to file a response. Then it goes to the state board subcommittee, and then it comes before the full board. So to the extent that those five, I mean, tomorrow is tomorrow, and then we'll see, when the report is generated, whether the school waives the 30-day period, and then, scheduling the subcommittee meeting and the full board meeting. Did you have more questions, Lyle, or?
No, it seems like they're in the pipeline. I don't understand why everything has to be done by June 30th when the procedures are being followed at this point. But I guess that's a question for legal counsel. So.
Well, and I think, we're all sort of stuck, if you will, with this July 1st moratorium. That came from the General Assembly. So we're, what that does is it means that we have, a new framework within which we need to operate.
Jen, could I ask a question? It's Kim and I'm on my phone now.
Sure, although Tom was next, so I'm going to go to him.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't see him.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
No, I know.
No problem at all.
Sure. Tom?
So, yeah, so I will, I'll just add my agreement to Lyle's perspective. And then, and not just ESBR, I mean, there are two other schools that are in this position, the only three in the whole state. are the only ones affected by this moratorium, which I don't understand the rationale behind anyways. But the process at this point will be much truncated. A site visit tomorrow, earliest the report could possibly be written is Friday, but probably not, which then brings us into next week. Regardless of what the report says, there will be a recommendation that comes at the end of that report. And so I guess my expectation is that we should schedule a subcommittee meeting to look over that report sometime next week. And then I don't know if if we should schedule a special meeting of the board for sometime next week, regardless of what the recommendation is. If there is a recommendation to be considered, our committee will have an opinion about that recommendation, whether or not we agree or not. But then it's the full board that should consider the results of that. So I just want to make sure that my thinking on that is right. And then I have a question about DQS, but I wanted to make sure that that's right, and so that I can go ahead and start putting out a poll to schedule our meeting.
Heather, did you have an answer to that?
Excuse me. Yes. I mean, one option that could occur as well is that it's the board's discretion. You could waive the subcommittee for this particular approval and just move forward with a decision by the whole board. I mean, that's what used to happen. Again, I'm not going to recommend that, or I'm neutral on that, but it is an option for the board. Yeah, and the other thing I would just add is that I think, you know, we're not very pleased about this at the agency at all, but we have to follow the law. And unfortunately, there was despite attempts to really get this written the right way, there was nothing in the law that actually says there's an accommodation for schools in process. And so we're stuck with the way it was written, which was a full moratorium on any new approvals after July 1st.
So I think what we could do is, you know, Tom, if you want to schedule a subcommittee meeting for the early part of next week, and we can tentatively schedule a full board meeting for the end of next week. And then, you know, depending on how this process plays out, we can cancel the meetings if they need to be canceled, or, you know, go forward with them. But then at least we have a placeholder.
Yeah, and I would probably schedule our meeting towards the end of the week to give the process enough time to actually happen. Recognizing that the full board meeting needs to happen before July 1, but our committee can be even the day before that, if we have it scheduled in. Heather's point was that was why I'm asking the question. We could not go through the subcommittee, although that would be a different route than we have been taking. But these are different circumstances too. So I could go either way, but that's why I asked the question. So I'll put out a doodle poll to see when the committee could meet next week. Or actually, I won't do that, but our trustee Maureen will do that. The other question on DQS, Heather, were there public hearings? And if so, what was the feedback from those?
We received public comment in written form, and then we held 2 stakeholder sessions, and 1 person came to the 2 stakeholder sessions, and they were at different times. They were both in person and virtual options. So we didn't get a whole lot. And in fact, I think, if I recall correctly, the 1 person that attended the virtual, it was both. You could attend in person or virtual. This person attended virtually, and they really didn't have any public comment per se. They just wanted to witness and see and, see if anyone else had public comment. So we incorporated the feedback. Oh, and we also had feedback from the EQS subcommittee of the state board. And so we incorporated all of the written feedback that we received through that process into the DQS, and off they went.
And they included the QAR as well?
Correct.
And yeah, I haven't seen media coverage. I haven't really seen much attention to this, which was a pretty big deal. So yeah, thank you.
Certainly, I would just add all of the, what we call the Vs are certainly aware of the DQS. So the Superintendent's Association, Principal Association, NEA, the Board Association of School Boards. So, that's some the reason I'm saying that is that some indication that folks largely in the public sphere are certainly aware of this, and it pertains to public schools and districts anyway.
All right, so I see we are a little over time. I see we still have, well, maybe we don't have Kim. Do we have Kim? And then
yeah, you do.
And then we
Sorry.
should move on to the next one.
Yeah, and I think I'll just say I was going to suggest that if there is something to be considered before the end of this month, that we just put it on and cancel. And I'm indifferent whether it goes to the subcommittee or not, given the timeline. If it allows the schools, I guess I'll say schools, because it sounds like one has been corresponding with us more than the other two, and maybe receiving higher priority in the process. But it sounds like we've got a few in the hopper. So if not doing the subcommittee allows for more time from the school's response, I think, of course, Tom would know better than I, certainly what the process is like, and given the time crunch, which offers more time. Because if we are only doing a special meeting for these approvals or not approvals, then I think the board will be able to dedicate more time than we might normally to approve or not approve. And that has been the tremendous value the subcommittee has offered when we've been able to consolidate our conversations in the full meeting. So just my thoughts on that. And then on the DQS, if it's okay, I just wanted to make sure, I think I understood you to say, Heather, that you incorporated the feedback that the EQS committee provided. I wasn't aware or didn't know or understand that there had been changes to the language of the DQS based on our feedback, and just thinking about our intersection with EQS and wanting to make sure they align still. Can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, I might actually ask Tammy for her input.
Yeah, there was some language changes that were made. I can circulate those back around.
Language changes on our side or on the DQS?
On the DQS side.
Okay, great. Yeah, I hadn't seen that, but maybe if the package is available that's going to LCAR, that'd be great to see. Thank you.
Lyle?
Yeah, one last question. I apologize for perseverating on the July 1 date here, but I'm assuming that the other two schools that we're talking about outside of VSBR are aware of the deadline, that we have reports. Is everything lined up so that we can receive everything we need on all three schools when we meet next week?
I have to get back to you on that. I have not heard much about those other two schools. And so I have to get back to you on that one. And I can get you that information later today.
Thank you.
So let me just say, with regard to the Independent School Rule Committee, I like the procedure that the board has created with having the committee have the first pass. I recognize that there have been times that the committee has reached a different conclusion than the agency's recommendation, and there have been times that the board has reached a different conclusion from the committee's recommendation. So I think it just having that extra layer, I think has prove to be valuable. I am aware of the drop dead deadline, but I think if the committee can warn a meeting late next week and you guys can get a quorum, I would prefer to do that, and then sort of keep the same process that we've been using and just on a very truncated timeline.
Would it be possible to do both of those things on the same day? I'm thinking Thursday.
As long as there's a break, because I think, you're going to have to then give the board time to look at the packet. So I have no problem with having it the same day, but maybe the committee could go in the morning and the full board could go later that afternoon. But let's put out a doodle poll and see what we get in terms of availability. And then, because obviously the end goal here is to have a quorum for both meetings. All right. Kim, is that your hand raised? All right. Okay, so thank you very much for the updates. And I think this was a really good and helpful discussion that we just had. So thank you all for your comments. With that, I'm going to turn to agenda item J. Oh, no, sorry. I've already done that. Agenda item K, which is the Lincoln School update. So I believe we have Jen Oldham here with us.
Yes, I am here. Let's see if you want to see me. No, I don't. I only have do not have a visual, which is good. Okay, good morning. First, I want to apologize for my late delivery of the report. I have been traveling and not had regular access to Wi-Fi. So it arrived early this morning, and thank you to Maureen or whoever who distributed it. And I'm just going to basically sort of read this final update and then perhaps take some questions at the end. So on behalf of the Lincoln School District, thank you for the opportunity to provide a final update on our preparedness to assume full operational responsibility as a supervisory district on July 1st, 2023. This report is a succinct overview of the key accomplishments achieved by Lincoln since being designated a supervisory district in November 2022. It is by no means a complete list of all that has been accomplished, but focuses on those things aligned with the areas of interest laid out in the SBE's initial framework for the Lincoln School District Status Report. Each of these accomplished involved innumerable steps, the details of which have been largely documented in previous updates submitted to the SBE and are therefore not repeated here. Each required a significant investment of financial and human resources garnered directly from our community, evidencing the overwhelming local support for this endeavor. What is worth repeating from previous reports is that the Lincoln Community School is a high-functioning grade K through 6 elementary school that has met education quality standards both before and since becoming part of MAUSD. Its operations will continue to be informed by policies, procedures, training, and operational manuals developed by MAUSD. Its highly experienced educators and administrators will remain at the school, and its standards of daily operations, the quality of leadership and teaching, and the existence of these policies and procedures will continue to be used by the district and provide a highly stable educational environment as it begins FY24 as a new district. As of July 1, Lincoln will have secured $100,000 in private donations to fund the one-time startup costs of providing a public school education as a new district. It will have received overwhelming support from district voters for a $4.65 million FY24 budget. It will have in place organizational structures and staffing models designed to meet the educational needs of students and ensure effective district operations. It will have negotiated new contracts with teachers and educational support staff and signed contracts for all existing teacher, education support, and administrative staff to return to the Lincoln Community School. It will have adopted all required governance and operational policies and procedural manuals. It will have implemented the necessary information systems, transferred the relevant data from MAUSD, and adhered to all federal, state, and AOE guidelines to ensure effective and legally conforming accounting practices and reporting, federal and state grants management and reporting, maintenance of student information and analysis of student data, compliance with FERPA policies, automated payroll implementation, purchasing policies and procedures, human resource management, interoperability with AOE systems, and school safety policies, procedures, and physical systems. It will have ensured Lincoln families received essential information, paperwork, and support related to enrollment in universal pre-K, enrolling K through 6 students in the new Lincoln School District, and/or tuitioning middle school and high school students to out-of-district schools. It will have secured financing through a tax anticipation note and applied for relevant state grants per its budget revenue projections. It will have taken ownership of the Lincoln Community School building and assumed the bond on the building. And ultimately, it will have in place a dedicated informed board, experienced leadership team, experienced professional and support staff, up-to-date technology and technology platforms, organizational systems and structures, working relationships with essential service providers, and access to a broad spectrum of educational and professional development resources to ensure the district's ability to meet, and I should say, the updated educational quality standards as well as the new district quality standards. By August 30th, the beginning of school, Lincoln will have finalized a contract with Betcha Transport for transportation services. Will have finalized its food service plans, including the hiring of necessary staff or additional staff if necessary, finalized a facilities maintenance plan, and ensured all staff have the requisite licensure for their positions. As we launch our new district, we would like to thank the State Board of Education for both its diligent attention to our process and for providing Lincoln the opportunity to demonstrate the viability and unique educational opportunities provided by small community schools, and to recognize their essential role in the socioeconomic life of Vermont communities. As quoted in a recent article in the New York Times, extrapolated from a VPR interview with the Lincoln School Board, having a local school gives people a reason to be a community and not just a town. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Tammy, I see your hand is raised.
Good morning, Jen. Thank you for submitting the updated report. I only got to read it this morning, so I'm playing a bit of catch up, but do appreciate it. A couple of questions. I noticed in your report that you're talking about that you negotiated new contracts. Is that for all teachers? And I ask that because you've had a number of emergency meetings over the last few weeks dealing with contract issues, and also a number of executive sessions to deal with contract issues. And the minutes from your meetings suggest that not all contracts have been signed, and in fact, you may have some teachers that are still outstanding. Could you clarify?
Yes. Well, it says by July 1, we will have all of these done, but there have been the contracts that have not been signed were not were not union contracts. They were administrative contracts for administrative personnel or positions not covered under the union contracts. So they had a different contract structure, and they were the last ones that had sort of been finalized and sent out to staff. So those final ones are going out this week. And again, the superintendent just brought all these. This is for the confidential executive administrative assistant, for our after school program staff, for our mentor program staff. Again, positions not governed under the union contracts. None of them are for professional or for teachers.
So you're saying that you have signed contracts from all teachers for essential core instructional positions, correct?
Correct. Except for maybe one that has to be altered, which I have to sign today.
Okay. And then can you, I also noted from your meeting minutes, can you sort of help me understand where you are with securing a business manager? As I recall that position is essentially serving as your COO. And as of the May meeting, I guess I understood that position, that you had secured an individual for that position. I think even maybe Brittany had made a commitment. But I'm also noting from your minutes that it seems that is not the case, and that there's a bit of a scramble to find somebody for that key position. Have you hired somebody? Do you have a candidate? Because that person was sort of a real key personnel in your organizational chart.
I'd be happy to answer your question. So Brittany is we changed our strategy somewhat because the business manager functions right now exceed the 0.5 FTE for the position that we would like to hire. And so we are not going to fill that position with a regular employee until we finish getting all the systems set up so that it is in fact a 0.5 FTE. So the position functions will be filled by the superintendent, by Brittany Gilman, who will continue to be our business manager consultant, and by the executive administrative assistant. And when everything is sort of up and running, as school starts and the position is really more stabilized as a half-time position, then we will either bring Brittany in half-time, or we will recruit for someone else.
I guess I'm a little confused because in your minutes, it states that you're active, that you were thinking about strategies for recruiting someone. So are you saying that Brittany is still going to be employed in this half-time position, or are you in the position
serving as a consultant?
But I think I just heard you say that she was going to step into that half-time position. Are you in the position? So is she going to take that job as a half-time position, or are you going to have to find somebody for a half-time position?
We are going to wait and see when everything plays out and when this gets stabilized. Right now, she is working more than half-time. And I think the most important piece of this is that all of the functions of the business manager are covered within our current staffing and consulting structure. And that the timing of when we hire someone and the actual job description of that business manager will still depend on a number of things that are unfolding.
What's your timeline for finalizing that?
When we determine what we actually need in that position. And I don't exactly know when that will be. Again, from our perspective, most important is that the functions of a business manager are fully covered by experienced personnel.
Well, it sounds like that is largely being done by Brittany right now as a consultant, right? And so do you have commitments from her to continue on as a consultant, sort of ad infinitum into the future at more than half time?
We have commitments from Brittany to continue to support the district and to facilitate whatever is necessary and be part of whatever is necessary to ensure the business manager functions are fulfilled.
All right, thank you.
There are a number of different scenarios that can play out. And there are a number of different responsibilities that a business manager has, and we are still determining what the actual job description of the business manager position will be.
I guess this is more of a comment than a question. This is pretty different from what we heard several months ago and what you put forward in your staffing plan.
It is.
And it's, a week away from you going live as a school district.
Well, I know that we're not the only school district that sometimes has different personnel issues at different times, or may change staffing strategies. And I know that we are fully prepared to fulfill all the functions required for the business operations.
I mean, I appreciate that school districts have staffing challenges. Your situation is fundamentally different from other school districts. You are standing up a new supervisory district, right? And, you know, part of that is establishing the programs, processes, and procedures and resources to sustain a supervisory district that has never existed before. And so having key personnel on the ground and ready to go on July 1st was part of the contingency plan of that whole enterprise being successful. And what I'm hearing now is a fairly significant shift from what we heard even a month ago about the stability of your leadership team. Now, there's nothing we can do about that. I'm just noting publicly that the situation has changed quite a bit. And I'm not hearing that there is a real concrete timeline or plan for remedying that. So I'm just going to say that. I mean, you know, you guys are going to go live next week, but this feels still quite precarious to me.
I appreciate your sentiments.
It looked like Jenna had her hand raised.
I do. Thanks, Jen. I had a question around the August 30th date for licensing. If teachers are given contracts prior to that, and then on the 30th, if people don't have the appropriate licensure and you start school shortly after that, what is your plan for that?
So the only two licensure issues that are outstanding, and this was in the previous report, is for whatever reason, Madeline Kudo-Burke, who is our superintendent, her renewed license is not showing up in the database. And so we have documentation that she will be approved, but I know that that's something that the board has been looking at. And the other is waiting on the provisional license for the director of special education. All of the teachers are fully licensed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Heather.
Sorry, just really quick. Jen, is that contingent with the first position you stated on a fingerprint check? Because there's been a backlog of about 3 months. Do you know if that's what the holdup is?
I really don't know. I mean, it's been, I know the fingerprint check was done at least, I want to say 3 months ago. So it possibly could be, I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Lyle?
Jen, is Madeline also serving as your special ed coordinator?
No.
Do we have a different person in that position then?
Correct.
Thank you.
And the additional, the special ed person can operate or work under a provisional license, is that correct?
That's correct.
I also just want to make sure that you guys have sent out the paperwork to families, or is that still needing to be done?
Oh, no, that's all done.
Okay. Okay, and you guys have already adopted all of your required policies and procedures?
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions or comments? All right, well, hearing none, Jen, thank you very much for your update. Best of luck to you these next few days and over the coming weeks.
Thank you.
And we will look forward to the fall.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. All right. And with my apologies, I think I'm going to turn this back to Heather, because I think we forgot part of your update. Is that correct?
Well, we had a separate item on readiness for Act 173, also going into effect July. If we have time, I'd be happy to provide that, and I can be pretty quick if that works.
Sure, and I'm sorry about that. I thought we had talked about Act 173 during the first part of your presentation, so I thought we were done with it.
It's a very complex policy space. It sure is. And so we were talking as part of my update around the new Series 2200 rules, which actually stemmed from Act 173 and how that relates to approved independent schools. But now I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the sentiment I'm hearing from the public side, public schools and their readiness for Act 173. And as you might recall, in May 2022, the special ed rules, the special education rule series was updated and approved by you all back then. And so there had been an extension of Act 173 wholesale. And now it is, as of July 1st, that is also in play. So everything about Act 173, whether it's public or the 2200 series, is actually effective July 1. So just to help clarify that, it is a really complex policy space. So I had the Act 173 advisory board that you might recall, advisory group that you might recall was instantiated as part of Act 173, had its last meeting a couple of weeks ago. They're planning on getting a final report of recommendations to the secretary. I'd be happy to share that or talk about that once that occurs. They have expressed reservations about the readiness of the field for implementing Act 173. Largely hearing about the challenges for general education. So the sentiment, and again, this is very anecdotal at this point, but the sentiment is that in terms of our special education professionals, they're actually aware, they know what's going on, but in terms of the changes for general education, they're feeling not ready. And I think from my perspective, this is really getting at the heart of Act 173, because what it really was part of what it was intended to do is to make sure that in general education, we are using best practice, we are using MTSS, we are using universal design, we are using all of these great things as a tier 1 education solution. And so, I think from my perspective, I understand that. I understand that folks are apprehensive about that. But in some sense, there's not a lot that was really required that's new. In fact, this is really just about let's make sure, for instance, if you look at the DMG report, let's make sure that we actually are deploying robust MTSS systems as required and has been required for many, many years now in EQS. Let's make sure that we're actually employing more differentiated and more effective instruction in the regular classroom. So we have provided supports because we actually are interested in, obviously it makes sense for us to actually make sure when there is a sense of not being prepared that we're getting that guidance out. But I just wanted to give a quick update on that topic. I think in our state, we always want to do a great job. And so anytime we have a new policy change, there's a lot of concern about that. And I have every confidence that it will be, in some districts and schools, it's probably going to be a little bumpy the first few months as we, really change what the process that has been occurring and make it more consistent with what we've all agreed is the right sort of system to set up. But I also know that there will be many districts that have already been doing this and will be good and will be cruising along. So it's more just an update on that and just to let you know what I've been hearing, assure you that we have, from our perspective, been providing supports for the past few years. We'll continue listening, and Meg might want to chime in with some of the more specific, she's not, but some of the more specific pieces and office hours and things of that nature that we've talked about providing for our independent schools, we've also been doing that for our public schools.
So
that was really what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and and I had totally forgotten about this other aspect of Act 173. So thank you. And so you're working with the public schools who may be struggling to meet this July 1st deadline as well, to sort of give them the guidance and support that they need over the next few months to help them be compliant with the act.
Yeah, and I think typically when we have any new law, there's an implementation period, and I think sometimes we're forgetting that. So, there isn't going to be a scenario where AOE folks are like knocking on the door saying, we're shutting your school down because you're not, 100% ready for Act 173. I think it's a process. And so I think, again, there's not really any compliance to monitor. It would be that would come through in our regular monitoring through our title funds and those kinds of things, because it's the same stuff that's required. But I just bring it to the board so that if you hear about some concerns with your stakeholders, that certainly I'm happy to talk to anyone, or if you want a message, like we heard about this from the agency. I just think it's good for all of us to kind of be aware.
No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the work that the agency is doing with the schools, because I realize that obviously that takes time and resources on your part, but for a very good ultimate goal. So thank you.
Well, the good news, Chair Samuelson, is that the team that would be doing this is not the team that would be working with ESBR and the independent school approvals team. So for the most part, there's a little bit of overlap.
All right. Any comments or questions?
I think Tom has his hand up.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry, I can see that.
Yes, thank you. First, I really appreciate that approach, recognizing the implementation timeline in getting schools and that will be really important for the independent schools who are taking this on as well. That same kind of patient support will be important. I remember when I was part of that group, we were actually called the Census-Based Funding Advisory Group for a while. And I'm wondering, is there any update on that part of Act 173 about the census-based funding, the new model for funding special education?
Yeah, we have. That's a great question. Thanks, Tom. And I agree. I think it really was that is the official title of the group. And over time, for a variety of reasons, perhaps the mission bled into some other things, but we're all trying to get the same work done here. So we're okay with that. I know that Brad James just provided some updated fiscal information to all the districts on which he's been doing all along, but I know it just went out in the past couple of weeks on what to anticipate regarding now that Act 173, and it has been fiscally actually in place. So that's already been in place. This is really the last component of the practice that is really going to be in place as of July, next month. So haven't heard a lot back. I know that we had at least one district that filed and was approved for, there's a clause or a component of Title 16 that allows a district, if they experience unanticipated and I'm blanking on the name and I apologize, but it's unanticipated, like really large expenses in the area that's actually covered by Act 173, they can actually apply to the secretary to say, hey, we need more money because this happened. And so that was approved. I can get more information to the board on that if they would like. It's different than, it's a different item in Title 16 than the usual overages. There's another term for that, and I apologize. Usually I know this stuff, but
It's different from the high cost kid reimbursement, right?
yes,
There's
yes, it's a
right?
different,
We have two.
and that's not even what it's called
mechanisms.
either, Tammy, but I appreciate that you know what I'm talking about.
But that's, there's a second
Yeah, so-
mechanism that has, if you have spending on a certain student above a certain
Right.
threshold, then you click into a reimbursement at 90% for that student.
Right. This is a different piece, which has not really been used that often. And so we'll see. And I think the idea in this case was that, look, it was linked to some of the funding that occurred with Act 173, like, based on the new formula for 173 and our current need, it was way off. So we'll monitor, and as I said, we've just gotten only one of those, to my knowledge. Certainly only one this year, but we'll monitor that, and if that's a continued pattern, I'm sure we'll talk with the General Assembly about that and figure out some tweaks, and certainly we'll be looking to Tammy for some advice on that as well, since the model was hers. Kidding, and I know it's not the right one. I know. All right, I'm getting punchy. It's been, sorry about that.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you again for the update. Sorry I cut you off earlier. All right. So we're postponing agenda item L, which takes us to agenda item M, which is future meeting planning. I kind of have on my running deadline list, I believe we're going to have some independent school approvals that we'll be looking at. My guess is that we will probably have the special education advisory panel update in July as well. Do a resolution for Donna. There may be teacher of the year presentations. I know those have often sort of happened in the summer, and I think the last time I checked, they weren't quite ready, but we'll circle back on that one. And then we may have updates from the EQS committee as well as the 2200 committee, and a final Act 173 update from the interim secretary. Anything else? We'll add to it as things come up, but anything else that anyone can think of? Lyle?
Just one thing, and it has to do with the very beginning of our conversation about is an email public comment and should it be added or not, but maybe I'm the only one that's received multiple emails from folks regarding the desired characteristics of the future Secretary of Education, specifically around literacy education. I don't know the status of a Secretary of Education search. Is that something that we know anything about?
So, well, two things. One is I don't think you're alone in getting those emails. And so again, I have just been responding to each individual, thanking them for their comments. And, I've created a file in my inbox for Secretary Search and put all of those emails in that inbox and said that, when we undertake that work, we will consider those comments at that point. So again, nothing that seemed like it was germane to being included in the agenda packet, but I have been responding to them with that information. I've not heard anything from the governor's office. I have been in close contact with them, and the last update was that they were waiting to get through the legislative session, which is upon us. So my thought is that it's probably, we may hear something soon. So I will let the board know when we do, for sure.
Great, thank you.
Mohammed?
I was just guessing the public may have heard something we have not yet. Me reading those emails, it came to me as a surprise as well. And some of it really sounded very urgent. Yes, I understand the sense of urgency in some aspects when people talked about boosting literacy, improving our literacy system and assisting in that. I understand that sense of emergency in our schools, but then it all came to me as like a tornado. It's like, oh, what's happening? So I just wanted to add to Lyle's comment in that aspect. Yeah, so And thank you for responding to those emails, Chair Samuelson. I did not want to go ahead and do that because I did not know what was going on.
Yeah, and so like, I think, at least for me, some emails come to me directly and are not copied to the whole board. Some come to the full board. And even the ones that come to the full board, I've not copied the whole board on my response, just again, to avoid violating open meeting. So the emails are part of the public record. They've been captured, but I do respond to them every day. And I say that, I mean, like, I think I really do appreciate people taking the time to reach out to the board. And there are a lot of issues in education, and a lot of people sort of looking at different aspects of what the board does. So I think it's really important that we are available and accessible. Sometimes things come up and there's just not a place to slot those comments because they're not relevant to what is currently before us. But I do have a tickler system where I'm kind of keeping track of things and have awareness of things that even if they're not on this month's agenda are probably going to be coming up in a few months. So it's good work.
Thank you for taking that time, and I'm sure it takes a lot of time, so thank you.
Yeah, it's fun. Like in my practice, I sort of have a 24-hour email response policy that doesn't really work with State Board of Ed because sometimes things just happen and have to happen much more quickly than that. Any other comments or questions or items to be added to the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to item N, which is our second public comment opportunity. If there are any members of the public who wish to be heard. Right, I'm not hearing anyone. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Moved by Tammy. Is there a second? Was that Mohammed who seconded?
No, that was Tom.
Oh, Tom. All right, seconded by Tom. All those in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. All right. We stand in adjournment. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.